Seymour.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can assure you I can't beat that. What a year, Mr. Speaker, and there are a number of people that I'd like to thank who have been very helpful to me as a new member. Not least of all, yourself in your own office, Mr. Speaker, the office of the clerk, the security, the messengers, the hard-working cleaners, and I agree with the opposition who say that they deserve a pay rise, and the ACT Party proposes that we give it to all workers by cutting taxes. I'd like to thank ministerial services and parliamentary services, and I'd particularly like to help my fabulous staff both in Epsom and in Wellington. I set out with a very simple goal. People said you should never be afraid to hire people smarter than you. Some people might say that was the only option I had, but I've certainly managed to discover some very, very talented people, and I'm very proud of the team I've got. I should also add to the list of parliamentary people I thank the library, who have been fantastically helpful to me. I should have to thank the opposition for the very important constitutional role that you play. In particular, my right honourable friend and fellow Northlander from Whananaki, who has really inspired me and taught me a few things. I came to the House thinking that if you wanted to come and speak in this House, you needed a detailed knowledge of what you were talking about. But as it turns out, that's optional. So thank you very much for the inspirational leadership you've given to me. I'd like to thank the Green Party members, with the exception of one who have also shown me that I was wrong about the need to have a detailed knowledge of economics before coming to Parliament. But with a little bit of luck, some of them will go away and discover that, yes, indeed, the interest rate is proportional to risk. And if that seems like a confusion, please Google it as a holiday assignment and we'd all be much, much better off. I'd like to thank the press gallery, with the possible exception of 3 News, who have mostly been quite kind to me. If anyone out there really thinks that my salary is the sum of all of my office budget, I'm afraid on my behalf that's not true, but it does tell you what sort of reporting you can get from that outlet from time to time. I'd like to thank my colleagues in the National Party for their immense support, particularly to a new member, in particular for the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, but also for the 2 ministers whom I am looking forward to serving as soon as that letter is tabled. With Minister Parato, I think we have some very important work to do with the policy for which I'm responsible, Partnership Schools Kura Horua, and I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge and thank the role that the Māori Party has played in that role. They have been prepared to put aside ideology and focus on the practicality of a policy that will actually help kids, and for that I greatly commend the Māori Party. It's unfortunate that such a quality cannot be found universally across the House. I also want to acknowledge Minister Joyce, whom I'll be the Under-Secretary for Regulatory Reform. We've heard a lot about housing affordability this year, and so we should, because it is a fact that the cost of housing relative to incomes is out of control in New Zealand. But as someone who has actually spent considerable time studying this problem, you cannot control housing affordability by picking on particular groups of home buyers. It is ultimately a matter of the supply elasticity of housing, and in particular land upon which you're allowed to build. And that is the type of challenge that I believe I can add value by helping Minister Joyce as Under-Secretary for Regulatory Reform. I think I would reflect more generally that we actually had something of a referendum at this election, and beneath what in student politics we once called the he said, she said BS of politics, there was a simple question. We had the first post-Rodgenomics election in this country's history. And by that I mean it was the first time that the leader of the opposition had not lived through the 1980s in this House and had not experienced what happened when the government got involved in serious intervention in the economy. And so we saw an opposition who wanted to go places with monetary policy, with the tax system, with the role of governments in the housing market, with the electricity market. They wanted to go places that Helen Clark, Phil Goff and their predecessors never would have gone. And the people of New Zealand looked into that and they said a resounding no. We also saw a referendum over what sort of society we'd like to be. Would we like to be a free and open society that welcomes people of all from all over the world? And it was a real shame this election to see Labour and the Green Party join those who know no better in xenophobic pandering against those who would like to come to our country. But nonetheless, the people of New Zealand stepped up to this referendum and they said no. And nowhere in New Zealand did the people of Epsom more strongly make this statement of no to going backwards in terms of economic policy and social tolerance than in the electorate of Epsom. And I have to say, I've already mentioned in this House it had the lowest party vote for New Zealand First, a tribute to the sophistication of the Epsom electorate. But it also had one of the lowest votes for the opposition party in the party vote anywhere. And why is that? It's because the people of Epsom are aspirational people, Mr. Speaker. The number one industry in our electorate is education. People come to our electorate because they want to attend our fabulous schools. We are next to two universities and have another one's campus within our electorate boundary. They are people who want to make a difference in their own lives and the lives of those they care about. And they know that government cannot fundamentally do that in the long term. It can give, but only to the extent that it also takes. And so I was humbled, not only by my fellow Epsom electors, many thousands who elected me to this House, but also by the hundreds of people who actively came out and helped with my enormous ground campaign. And if anybody thinks that that's an easy way to win an electorate, well, I'd hate to see a tough campaign. We delivered 85,000 direct mail letters by hand with what I have to say was probably the most highly skilled and most dollars per hour mail delivery team that the world has ever seen. We were absolutely humbled by the number of people who were happy to help with that campaign, and it was a very humbling thing to be involved in. As I was saying, maths isn't always the strong point across the House, but we'll leave that there. My proposition to my constituents is that they would help strengthen the centre-right by voting for me, and that I would be a very good local electorate MP. And every day I have constituents coming through my door. It's a great pleasure to help you. Please keep coming, and I hope that I can help you much more over the following 3 years, because it may be a mystery to some members, but that's actually the job of an electorate MP. It's a long time since Tauranga. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud to be here. I'm very proud to stand beside the National Party, beside the Māori Party, beside Peter Dunn, for a government that has profited from this referendum, where New Zealanders have said that we want to be a free and open society with a limited role for government. That is what makes New Zealand great. That is what makes Epsom great. And I sincerely wish all members of all hues a very happy, festive, fabulous season over the weeks to come, because you're going to need it before next year. Thank you.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, it's a great pleasure to take part in the adjournment debate for the end of the 2014 year here at Parliament. And I'm very pleased to take part in this debate because looking across the House, it's clear the government need a holiday. They look absolutely exhausted. Looking across the House, oh, there's Hekia Parata. Yes, Hekia Parata, of course, humiliating day for her as she backs down on the government's flagship education policy.